Thank you.
Order. During this address and reply debate, we're now coming to a group of maiden speeches by new National Party members, and I call to deliver her maiden speech, Maggie Barry.
E te whare tēnā koe. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā iwi o ngā hao e wha. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. To the leaders, to the many voices, to all the diverse people and communities of the Four Winds, I honour and respect and greet you all. I acknowledge you, Mr Speaker, my parliamentary colleagues, Sir Don McKinnon. I am indeed honoured to be one of the 26 new members of this 50th Parliament, which more than any other before it best represents us, the rich, cultural and diverse diversity and face that is modern New Zealand. Greetings to all my friends up there in the public gallery who made the effort to come along here today. Thank you very much for all your ongoing support. Thank you too to the National Party, to the President, the board members, to Peter Kiley and to those assembled, the loyal stalwarts. Many from the North Shore have made the journey here today. Many others are watching it on the television or the podcast. There are so many ways to get involved in this auspicious occasion. I acknowledge you all with gratitude. Special thanks go to my North Shore team. I stand here today because of your accumulated wise advice, your enthusiasm and your tenacity. A year ago, many of you didn't even know me, and I am humbled by the loyalty, the trust and the faith that you all had in me to deliver for the electorate you treasure, your taonga. Heartfelt thanks to my partner Grant. We met during an outward bound course, which turned out to be excellent training ground for the campaign trail. Grant has been my mainstay and my number one supporter, and I most certainly would not be here without him. And all my love as a mother goes out to my son Joe. He's taught me more about life in the past 14 years than anyone else ever has. I'm incredibly proud of him and very thankful that he's here with us today. My boy, Joseph Vincent, was named after his two grandfathers. On my side, we hailed from counties Cork and Kerry, and my son's father, Paddy Marin, was born in County Monaghan. Paddy, who's up there in the gallery next to our son Joe, arrived here in New Zealand from the Emerald Isle on the good ship Southern Cross. It was the very day of his 3rd birthday, and he was clamouring for his presents, as they do. His father told him that he was giving him a very special gift, a new start, a new life in a new country. My people were farmers, and this was their land of opportunity too. They were practical people who worked the land, and much like myself, were fond of reinvention and recycling. Actually, as the crow flies, I haven't come very far at all, about half a kilometre really from where I was born in Tinakori Road. These parliamentary buildings, the precinct as they're known, were always part of the backdrop of my life. It was my favourite shortcut into town through the leafy grounds, past the statues of the great and the good. I went to Sacred Heart Convent Primary School across the road from here in Guildford Terrace. My family went to Mass at the Basilica in Hill Street, which was the church where my parents were married, where I was baptised and where we held both of their funerals. My mother Agnes was the first single woman the New South Wales Bank had ever given a business loan to. She opened her florist shop round the corner from here in Molesworth Street in 1939, the age of the corsage, the funeral wreath and the American soldiers. All very good for building what became a highly successful business. Raised on a farm in the Depression years, Mum was a hard worker, and to save enough money for her first home, she also ran a boarding house, and she was part of her wartime duty working nights at the glove and munitions factory. Weekends, she was a mainstay of the Dig for Victory vegetable garden team here in Thorndon. To borrow the Sam Hunt line, I'm the fruit of old loins. Mum had me, her only child, when she was 43, and never one to peak too early. She later learned to play golf, hitting a hole-in-one at the age of 72. Agnes was a remarkable and a determined woman who taught me many things, including the value of a strong work ethic, the importance of trying your best if you want to achieve the things that matter, and never, ever giving in on what you really believe in. In her later years, she taught me how to live in the moment, which was perhaps one of her greatest gifts to me. David, the old man, had a sharp mind and a quick temper. He was very fond of a drink and an argument, and I learned early on to justify my point of view or keep quiet. These are skills I feel that will come in very handy in this chamber. Dad had falsified his age to fight to enlist in World War II. He was keen to serve his country, as his father Edward had before him at Gallipoli. I was raised to believe that in peacetime, the highest form of public service is to be a Member of Parliament. I know they'd all be very proud of me standing here today in this chamber as the first politician in my family. My forebears picked this extraordinary country as the place they wanted to call home. And now my family and I have chosen to cross the harbour and be part of the North Shore community. It is a great privilege for me to be here today representing them, following in the footsteps of such honourable men as George Gere and Wayne Mapp. And I'm breaking in some new ground of my own, becoming National's first ever woman MP north of the Harbour Bridge. I was born in the year it opened, in 1959, and I can assure you we won't be waiting around patiently for another 52 years for a second harbour crossing. The North Shore is defined by water. The glorious Waitemata Harbour, the Hauraki Gulf and the freshwater playground of Lake Pupuki. Shore people work and play on the margins between the ocean and the land. We enthusiastically sail, windsurf, paddleboard, swim and fish. There's a sense of satisfaction, really, in being different from either our big city or our rural neighbours. There's a tangible sense that we are indeed fortunate to be still enjoying that end of the golden weather lifestyle that was made famous by local playwright Bruce Mason. Laid back, yes indeed, but never lacking when it comes to energy and vision. The North Shore is an unashamedly aspirational community. We have a rich cultural history, and the mountains in Devonport were amongst the earliest areas of Auckland to be settled. Occupied by Māori from the 1300s, European settlers with their colonial architecture began arriving from the mid-1800s, and there was a permanent naval presence by 1841, still strong to this day. Gradually, farming was overtaken by shipbuilding, and now tourism and appreciative visitors are a substantial and increasing source of income as they catch the ferry across from the city to sample the pleasures and diverse heritage of Devonport. Takapuna translates as the rock with a spring, and against the background of some of the finest beaches in the country springs a strong commercial drive. And along with a handful of multi-million-dollar businesses, the North Shore is home to more than 10,000 small-sized businesses. I pledge to help them overcome any hurdles and to grow their opportunities. Reflecting modern New Zealand, we are a culturally diverse community with nearly 10,000 Asians making up more than 15% of our numbers. As their elected representative, I pledge to do all I can to continue to build on their successes and to work with other MPs from neighbouring electorates. The Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman has been of enormous help to me, and I look forward to working with him more closely in the future and with Nikki Kay as well. The North Shore people reward excellence, and we look after our own with the Ames Awards. We love to crow about our local heroes, our literary greats, Sargison, Fairburn, Tufare and Mason. There's certainly no shortage of sporting greats either to celebrate. Sir Peter Blake, Ian Ferguson, Ralph Roberts, Buck Shelford, Alison Rowe, Kirk Penny and the Breakers, Jack O'Gill, I could go on. The roll call does not stop there. As the MP for North Shore, I'm committed to building on that outstanding record and focusing on achieving our aim of becoming the New Zealand Centre for High Performance Sport. North Harbour is already home to the Millennium Institute, and I'd like to acknowledge and commend the hard work and determination of my colleague in the adjoining electorate of East Coast Bays, the Honourable Murray McCulley. I enthusiastically endorse the proposed National Ocean Water Sports Centre on Takapuna Beach. The NUSC Centre will be a world-class training facility to develop up-and-coming athletes across the four codes of yachting, windsurfing, kayaking and ocean swimming. I commit to help overcome any hurdles in the formation of that NUSC Centre. The most commonly asked question of me in the past year has been, why on earth would you leave the wholesome pursuit of plants and go into the dirty business of politics? My erstwhile colleagues in the media had a field day when I said I was standing for Parliament. Gardener of the nation takes on the parliamentary jungle. There were references to weeding out the opposition. Malodorous and odious comparisons were made between MPs and mushrooms, both thriving in perpetual darkness and nourished on manure. And while I do expect that some manure will come my way, I certainly did not come here to be kept in the dark and fed a load of rubbish. Of course, I'm not exactly gaining ground by the shift into politics. In last year's Reader's Digest Most Trustworthy Professions poll, firefighters came in first as usual, and fair enough too. Journalists came in 38th out of 39, just above real estate agents. Politicians didn't even feature in the top 40, so I'm staying in familiar, unpopular territory. I've known this chamber for the past 30 years as a broadcaster and as a journalist, reporting and questioning the not always so honourable members. For all of those whose antics and machinations provided me with that bumper harvest to feed upon, you know who you are, and I thank you kindly. I know firsthand from my days in radio and television news about the daily grind of finding news stories within tight deadlines. And I think, on the whole, the New Zealand media work hard, do a good job, and I congratulate them. But after 30 years of being part of the tribe that reports from the sidelines, asking what and why and how, I decided the time was now right for me to step inside the legislative tent and to make a different contribution to the country that has given me so much. As well as being a strong voice for the North Shore, there are also wider goals I'm aiming to achieve in my time in this place. It's fair to say I have some experience in broadcasting, and thanks to my family, I have more than a passing interest in the health sector, having led a review into maternity services and palliative care and been involved with Hospice New Zealand. During my mother's 10-year decline with dementia, I saw with sadness too many older people in residential care who didn't have family around and were without advocates to keep an eye on them. Our elderly deserve dignity and protection. I believe they have earned our respect, and we certainly would not be the society that we are today without them. I agree with John Key that the measure of a civilised society is how we treat our vulnerable, our very young and our very old, and the 1 in 5 New Zealanders with disability. Given my green-fingered background and lifelong love of plants, I hope that my knowledge and skills may be helpful to shape our environmental and conservation goals. Producing and presenting the Garden Show for 12 years on television gave me privileged access to people's lives. Some of them were overwhelmed and daunted by the sheer scale of the planet's problems. But personally, I never doubted that saving the world starts in your own backyard. I share the views of many that we are only the custodians of this land and the guardians, the kaitiaki of our grandchildren's heritage. We have to be vigilant and face up to our responsibilities and our woeful environmental track record. Over many days, over many decades, we've let too many introduced pests decimate our native plants. We haven't treated our oceans and our waterways with the respect they deserve. And I want to be part of the government that puts that right. As convener of this year's up-and-coming Blue Greens Forum, we'll be making progress on these issues, and I'm excited to be involved in shaping the agenda for discussion around the country's environmental and conservation concerns. I remain convinced we can grow both our economy and manage our environment better, and that improving the economy must not and need not be at the expense of the environment. But in these troubled times, we need to explore all our potential advantages and to tap into that famous traditional Kiwi ingenuity, increase our dairy production and returns, while looking to limit the adverse effect on water quality. In the 20 years I had my garden show business, I travelled all over the world visiting over 1,000 gardens. It was a dream job and I loved the places I went, but this is my home. New Zealand is my tūranga waiwai. I know where I stand. This is where I belong. And for me, I'm at my most patriotic about my homeland. And believe me, I'm not about to let anybody harm it. When I walk with the kauri, the pahutakawa and the tree ferns, these are my precious inhabitants of my cathedrals of green. I intend to work very hard on my select committees of finance and expenditure and local government and environment. I'll personally welcome the opportunities to work constructively with politicians from other parties to secure the best outcome. But ultimately, I didn't want to join Labour's ranks or become a Green Party MP. My values are different. I stood for national because I believe we have the right financial policies to see us through these troubled times. I agree with our goals. My mother and father raised me to believe that hand in hand with individual freedom comes personal responsibility, that people sometimes do need a hand up, but a lifetime of handouts is not the answer. As a mother, I am raising my teenage son with the same values because I believe that they are as relevant today as they were when our party was founded 75 years ago. My constituents will always have my first loyalty, and I will do my very best to represent their interests with courage and with energy. I will be a strong voice for the North Shore, and I am very ambitious for my electorate. It is a privilege to begin my service to them today as their Member of Parliament. Thank you.
Colleagues, so that we don't go too far into the meal break this evening, could I suggest members defer their congratulations till a little later to deliver his maiden